Welcome to Revolt Black News. I'm your host, Eboni K. Williams. Now today we're starting things off with the very important trial of Derek Chauvin. Now notice how I call it the trial of Derek Chauvin and not the George Floyd case. Well, that's because Brother Floyd is not the one on trial. No, instead, we know that Floyd tragically and heartbreakingly lost his life due to the former Minneapolis cop's decision to kneel on his neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds, thereby taking George Floyd's life. So consequently, it is Derek Chauvin who is on trial here. Helping me break down this entire case is good friend of Revolt Black News and a well-known community activist, Sister Kimberly Latrice Jones. Also joining is a longtime friend of mine, peer mentor, attorney Chris Stewart, who represented George Floyd's family in the historic $27 million settlement. Chris, Kimberly, welcome to the show. So Chris, I want to start with, before we get to the criminal case of Derek Chauvin, what I mentioned earlier, which is the history-making $27 million civil settlement that you and your firm were very instrumental in. You're on record as saying this, Chris, that this settlement provides a path forward for our clients, and it ensures that George Floyd's death will result in some substantive and positive change. Now, while no amount of money will bring back George Floyd, this will certainly help make life a little bit easier in such a hard time for his family. Chris, do you see the settlement carrying over into influence in the Derek Chauvin criminal case? Now, we know that 2 jurors have already been removed for saying that they felt that they would have bias in thinking that because the city settled for such a large amount, it's an admission of wrongdoing and thus Derek Chauvin's guilt. What's your reaction to that?
I don't believe so. I've been watching every question the jurors have been asked since then, and no one is saying that it's going to play any more of a role. I think that the judge summed it up perfectly also. Look, there's nothing more that can influence a jury that they haven't already heard or seen in this entire state because everything is so public. We have to look at, how the other cases have gone. When I settled Walter Scott, that was for a record amount. People thought it was going to influence it. That cop got 20 years. Same thing with Gregory Towns. I settled that in Georgia years ago. One cop got life, the other got like 10 years. So, it is what it is. We can't delay the civil case while the criminal case is going because he's going to be found guilty.
Now, we are seeing, Chris, from your legal expertise, lots of publicizing of the jurors that have been seated for this trial. On Monday, we saw a white woman in her 20s. The 14th juror, she was the 14th juror, rather, in question. We've seen what's being reported as a rather diverse juror, certainly some black jurors, some white jurors, some Hispanic jurors. Do you think that the jury composition makes a difference in the likelihood of conviction? And what do you expect this jury to do here?
We knew from the jump the jury was going to be predominantly white. I mean, we're in Minnesota, and they don't just get them from Minneapolis. The jurors come from everywhere. But I lost, I don't believe that whole principle anyway, because with the Walter Scott case, the person that hung our jury in the first trial was black. So that was shocking to us that the black person on the jury went against convicting that officer, and all the white people were trying to convict him. So that was shocking. And so I don't put my money in a white person can't convict a cop who they clearly see killed somebody. You just got to have faith in the jurors.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Kimberly, we're less than a week away from the expected start date. We know March 29th is going to be when we hear opening arguments. You have had some of your very poignant sister videos go viral. How do you foresee social media setting the tone for this particular case?
I think this is going to be an extremely high profile case. I think we're looking at something that's going to be followed as heavily as like the OJ trial was followed. I think the entire nation is going to be watching. I think people are looking for this case to be a benchmark for cases moving forward. I think it was the case that rocked the world. I mean, you bookended with the Rayshard Brooks case that we have here in Georgia, and you're talking about the root of the civil unrest of 2020. And I think as the weather gets warmer, as more people are getting vaccinated, as we are becoming more open in terms of being able to freedoms outside of COVID, I think that they should be very careful about the decisions that get made on this case, because I would not be surprised if people who are monitoring so close don't get the conviction that they're looking for, that they're going to take back to the streets.
If this case does not result in the justice that the culture and community and really the world are demanding, What kind of backlash in social media and really activist kind of grassroots reaction do you expect?
I definitely expect this to be another Freedom Summer. I definitely expect people to be engaged, civilly engaged in what's going on, particularly as it relates to this case. So I think that if it doesn't get the result that it needs, people are going to go back to the streets. People are going to put pressure on their state legislators to pass some type of legislation. We need to demilitarize the police. We need to be writing legislation that's going to assist with eliminating these cases. We need to get rid of qualified immunity. We need better training for our police officers. It takes you longer to get a cosmetology license than it does to become a police officer. And so I think that part of what we have to still be doing is making sure that we're still working towards the bigger goals that are necessary to stop us from having these cases at all. That is going to be the only thing that is going to salve the people if this case doesn't go the way that it definitely should go.
Absolutely. To that point, Chris, Kimberly's making excellent points about the legislative changes that we need to see with or without a conviction. Really, these changes need to be made regardless. We know that several of them, particularly the qualified immunity piece, the comprehensive database for where officers with records of wrongdoing and misconduct can at least be centralized so folks don't jurisdiction hop. You kill some person in Florida and now you're going to get a new job in Ohio. How to stop that kind of shit. Is the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It's not perfect. It's not everything that we want, but it's a lot of the things that get us towards the start of reforming what policing looks like in America. Chris, what's your take on the act, and do you see this trial being closely correlated with the kind of lobbying effort to make sure that it's passed?
I mean, we've been fighting so hard to try and get that thing passed. We've talked on shows, we've appeared on TV, keep talking about it, but it's the same thing, man. That's why we always end up back in this situation. It's going to boil down to politics, and it's going to get to the Senate, and it's going to be some BS with, Republicans versus Democrats. If everybody actually believed in better policing, then that bill will pass, because the policies in there not only protect the community, they make policing better. I've got good friends who are cops, and they're good dudes who love the hood. They love their community. But then there's some that don't deserve to be a police officer and never should have been one. It's not about any of that. It's about politics.
Hey, y'all. Now, for full episodes of Revolt Black News, tune into Revolt TV. And if your cable provider doesn't carry it, make sure you reach out and let them know that you're trying to join the revolution. I'll see y'all every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern, only on Revolt.